In this presentation, we'll review how to complete the fiscal year 2018 annual report and fiscal year 2017 closeout report required under your Tribal Historic Preservation Office Historic Preservation Fund grant. During this training, we'll be referring to your grants by the fiscal year under which Congress appropriated the funds. So the grant awarded under the 2017 congressional budget will be referred to as the fiscal year 2017 grant, and the grant awarded under the fiscal year 2018 budget will be referred to as the 2018 grant. Each of your grants run for 2 federal fiscal years. Each starts on the first day of the federal fiscal year under which Congress awarded the funds, regardless of when the grant was signed. The first day of the federal fiscal year is always October 1st prior to the start of the calendar year. Your grant expires on September 30th, 2 years later. Because these grants are awarded annually, your grants will overlap for 1 federal fiscal year. If you look at the example on this slide, you can see that the 2017 and 2018 grants overlap. Both are active in federal fiscal year 2018, which runs from October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2018. The grants for each grant are as follows. The 2017 grant started October 1st, 2016 and ended September 30th, 2018. The 2018 grant started October 1st, 2017 and ends on September 30th, 2019. You must separate out the work completed and the charges incurred under each grant separately when completing the required reports for each grant. Annual and closeout reports are submitted through the THPO report submission portal. We created the portal to allow both the tribes and NPS to see everything that has been submitted in one place. The steps for completing and submitting the report are as follows. Complete all required financial forms stated in your grant agreement and save them to your computer. Log on to the THPO HPF Grant Reports portal at the address shown. Click on the Attachments link. Attach all annual and closeout reports. Complete the Annual Accomplishments Report online. Then contact your tribe's NPS grant administrator to let them know that the reports have been submitted. We'll go through each of these steps in the next slides and then review how to complete each of the required reports. Start by going to the portal, which can be found at https://grants.dev.cr.nps.gov/THPO/login.cfn. On the login screen, enter your tribe's username and password and click on Submit. If you don't know or have forgotten or lost your user ID and password for the portal, you can contact NPS and we'll provide it to you. You should now be on your tribe's section of the portal. Click on the word Attachment on the right. You should now be on the main report portal screen. The top section of the page contains links to complete and submit your reports. The link to the left will take you to a web page that contains copies of the financial forms that are required under the annual and closeout grants. Complete these reports first and save them to your computer. The bolded center link takes you to the Electronics Annual Accomplishment Report. This report is required under both your MOA partnership agreement with the National Park Service and under your grant agreement. The middle section will contain a list of the documents you've uploaded in this process, and the section below that contains copies of reports you've submitted under past grants in case you need to reference them. To begin submitting your reports, click on Add Attachment in the upper right-hand corner. On this screen, click on Browse to locate and upload the completed financial reports you saved to your computer. You have to load them one at a time and provide a document title or descriptive name for each file. Here, we've uploaded an SF424A non-construction final budget required under the fiscal year 2017 grant closeout report and named it FY2017 SF424A. To save it to the portal, click on Add Attachment. You'll be taken back to the main portal page where the document now shows up in the middle section of the screen under Uploaded Attachments. Repeat this process until all financial reports for both the annual and final reports are uploaded. After you've completed this, click on the link that reads, "Click here to complete the Annual Accomplishments Report online." We combined the previously required Annual Significant Accomplishments Report and Product Summary Report into one document that we'll refer to simply as the Annual Accomplishments Report. By completing this report online, NPS can better track the accomplishments reported. Once you've submitted all of the questions, once you've answered all of the questions on the Annual Accomplishments Report, click Submit and send your email to NPS Grant Administrator, letting them know that the report is ready for review. NPS will download and review the reports after all of the required reports have been submitted. If we find that any reports are missing or were not completed correctly, we'll contact you so that you can go back to the portal and add the missing reports or upload a revised report. Please don't delete any forms once you've submitted them. By having the reports recorded in the portal with the date submitted, we can document that you submitted the reports on time, even if they need to be corrected. Simply label any corrected reports that you submit later as revised. Now we're going to review the report requirements under each grant. All tribes that received grant funds under the fiscal year 2017 apportionment must submit a final or closeout report package. All tribes that received grant funds under the fiscal year 2018 apportionment must submit an annual report package. All tribes must submit the Annual Accomplishments Report as required by your tribe's partnership agreement, whether or not you receive funding through a THPO HPF grant. Please look in your grant agreement to see if your tribe is required to submit any additional reports to those we discussed in this presentation. Where in your grant can you find the list of required reports and deliverables? In your 2017 grant, they are listed under Article 8, and in your 2018 grant, they're listed under Article 9. The fiscal year 2017 closeout or final report package must cover the full grant period of October 1st, 2016 to September 30th, 2018, and include at a minimum the following reports: a final SF425 Federal Financial Report, a final budget breakdown on an SF424 non-construction budget form following the program-specific instructions and showing the actual, not the planned budget, an SF428B final tangible personal property report, and copies of all indirect cost rate agreements covering the indirect costs charged to the grant. These reports must be submitted to the reports portal by December 31st, 2018, but submitting them earlier is highly encouraged. Tribes that received a grant under the 2018 apportionment must submit a full annual report package, including financial reports. Tribes that did not receive a grant in 2018 only have to submit the annual accomplishments report. The report should cover the first year of the grant, October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2018, and include at a minimum the following: an annual SF-425 federal financial report, an SF-428A annual tangible personal property report, and a copy of the annual accomplishments report. These reports are also due to the portal by December 31st, 2018. Now we'll review how to complete each of these reports. The SF-425 Federal Financial Report is used to show the status of your tribe's obligations and expenditures under a grant for a specified period of time. You must submit an SF-425 for each grant. For the fiscal year 2018 annual report, this should contain information about the funds expended or obligated in the first year of the grant, from October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2018. For the fiscal year 2017 final report, this should contain information about the funds expended during the full grant period of October 1st, 2016 to September 30th, 2018. The next several slides are annotated to show you what information goes into each field of the SF-425. Field 1 is the name of the federal organization, which is the National Park Service. Field 2 is your grant number. Field 3 is your tribe's name and address. Field 4A is for your tribe's DUNS number. Field 4B is for your tribe's EIN number. Field 5 is where you can list any internal number your tribe assigns to the grant. Field 6 is where you check whether this is an annual or final report. Field 7 is where you check if your tribe uses the cash or the accrual method of accounting. Field 8 is where you list the start and end date of your grant. Field 9 is where you put the reporting end date. This will be September 30th, 2018 for both the SF-425 submitted with the annual report and the final report. For Section 10 of the form, we'll assume that the tribe is using the cash basis of accounting since it's the most common, but these slides provide instructions if you're using the accrual basis as well. Field 10A is the amount of federal cash receipts. This is the amount of money you've drawn from your grant account as of September 30th, 2018. This should match what is reported in your ASAP grant account, and we'll be checking ASAP to make sure that it does match. Field 10B is the amount of federal cash your tribe has paid out as of September 30th, 2018. Field 10C is the amount of any cash you still have on hand, which will be lines 10A minus 10B. Field 10B is the total funds authorized. This is the amount of your grant award. Field 10E is the federal share of expenditures, which is the amount that's actually been paid out. Field 10F is the federal share of unliquidated obligations, which is the amount of expenditures you've incurred but not yet paid out. Field 10G is the total federal share. It's the calculation of lines 10E plus 10F. Field 10H is the unobligated balance of your federal funds. This is the amount of the federal award that has not been either paid out or obligated. The next three fields, 10I through 10K, are for reporting on the recipient's share, which is matching share. THPO grants do not include matching share, so these fields should be left blank. The next four fields are for reporting on program income. Program income is gross income earned by the tribe that is directly generated by grant-supported activities during the period of performance of the grant. Only one tribe is earning program income, so we won't go over this section line by line. The slides provide instruction should you need it. Field 11 of the SF425 is for reporting on indirect costs. You must complete all fields in this section if your tribe has charged indirect costs to the grant. If more than one indirect cost rate was used under the grant, each rate must be listed separately. Field 11A is to list the type of indirect cost rate agreement. It could be a fixed rate, predetermined rate, or final rate. Field 11B is where you list the rate approved in the indirect cost rate agreement. Field 11C are the dates covered by the indirect cost rate agreement. Field 11D is for the amount or description of the base on which the indirect cost rate was made. Field 11E is the amount of total indirect costs charged. And Field 11F is the amount of total indirect costs, or the amount of Field 11E that's being charged to the grant. For final reports, this field must match the amount of indirect costs shown on your final budget breakdown, which we'll go over soon. The final section of the SF425 is simply the name, signature, date of signature, and contact information of the authorized certifying official. In SF428B, Annual Tangible Personal Property Report is required as part of the annual report package for your fiscal year 2018 grants. This report is used to account for all equipment, which only includes non-expendable items costing $5,000 or more per unit with a useful life of more than 1 year, purchased during the first year of your grant. In the form, you must include a description of each item purchased, its acquisition cost, and the date it was purchased. As per federal law, you must have received prior written approval to purchase any equipment in order for the cost of the equipment to be reimbursed under the grant. Even if you haven't purchased equipment, you must submit an SF428A, but you may simply complete the top section and write "No equipment purchased" in the body of the form. In SF428B, Final Tangible Personal Property Report is required as part of the final report package for fiscal year 2017 grant recipients. It's where you provide a final list of equipment purchased under the grant. The report also provides options for you to request specific disposition instructions for the equipment that was purchased and is no longer needed, or for which the tribe wishes to be given title. Like the Annual Tangible Personal Property Report, you must complete the form even if you haven't purchased equipment, but you can simply note that no property was purchased in the comments section. As part of the fiscal year 2017 final report, you must submit a final budget breakdown on an SF424A non-construction budget form, showing how the awarded funds were actually expended. This final budget is compared to the planned budget approved as part of your grant agreement, or as NPS has approved any modifications to the budget. This form must be completed according to our program-specific instructions that we'll explain here. The final budget breakdown is completed in Section B of the SF424A. Here, the expenditures must be broken into 3 columns to separate out expenses related to administration costs, operations costs, and contractual costs. As you can see in this slide, administration costs, outlined in red, go in the first column. Operations costs, outlined in green, go in the second column. And contractual costs, outlined in blue, go in the third column. This separation is required so that we can determine if the amount of administration costs and indirect costs remained under the 25% maximum allowance as required by the statute that created the grant program. It also helps us double check to see if any equipment was purchased or if any funds were contracted out. In the next few slides, we'll review what types of costs go under each category. Column 1, administration costs, are reasonable and allocable costs related to the overall management of activities directly related to finance, general administrative salaries and wages, or other overhead functions not directly attributable to specific program areas identified in the grant agreement. All administrative costs reported must be absolutely necessary for project or program implementation, such as the cost items identified in the final grant agreement or items otherwise approved in writing by the NPS awarding officer. Examples include accounting costs, auditing costs, budgeting, and contracting costs. Costs related to grant administration, personnel, property management, and equal opportunity. General ledgers, legal services, general liability insurance, depreciation on buildings, and on equipment. Column 2, THPO operation costs, are costs that are directly attributable to HPF program activities. These costs may include personnel costs related to work completed under the HPF program areas of planning, survey and inventory, National Register, review and compliance, development and acquisitions, covenants, or tax credits, or education. Supplies and equipment needed to carry out work under the program areas listed above or stated before, and conference fees and travel expenses for THPO program meetings. Column 3, contractual costs, are costs related to contracted work or services. Again, as part of the statute that created the Historic Preservation Fund, no more than 25% of grant funds may go toward administration costs in column A, line I, and total indirect costs, the total column of line J. Follow this diagram to ensure that your final budget meets this requirement. An annual accomplishments report is submitted as part of the THPO grant annual report and required under your NPS partnership agreement as well. As we mentioned before, this report now combines the information we used to collect under both the old annual significant accomplishments report and the product summary report. The information collected through this report includes information on survey and inventory activities, and information on the identification and nomination of properties to the tribal register or the National Register, a description of educational activities and programs carried out during the fiscal year, information on the number of federal undertakings on tribal lands reviewed, and information on the number of federal undertakings on ancestral lands reviewed. It also collects information on, or it asks for a description of the Section 106 review activity On the total number of non-federal consultations, a description of other program activities paid for with grant funds or otherwise accomplished, and a place for photographs. One final reminder about fiscal year 2017 grant final reimbursement requests. All fiscal year 2017 grant funds have to be expended or obligated by September 30th, 2018. By federal law, you have only 90 days after that end date, or until December 31st, 2018, to complete your final request for reimbursement and submit your final reports. No grant extensions are allowed, and no funds may be carried over. As of this year, if you do not draw down your final reimbursements under your fiscal year 2017 grant by December 31st, 2018, the ASAP payment system will not let you access your account. Lastly, we want to go over the single audit requirement. The Office of Management and Budget requires that all non-federal entities that expend over $750,000 in federal funds from all federal sources within their fiscal year must undergo a single audit or program-specific audit for that year. To see details on this regulation, go to OMB Circular 2 CFR 200.500 through 200.520. The completed audit report must be submitted electronically to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse within 30 days after the receipt of the auditor's report or 9 months after the end of the THPO's fiscal year, whichever is earlier. No extensions are allowed. NPS must check to see the tribes are current with their audit requirements before awarding any additional HPF funds. Finally, if your tribe receives a THPO HPF grant, your single audit must list that the THPO HPF program's CSBA number 15904 is in the schedule of federal awards within the single audit. If you need to contact NPS with any questions about anything in this presentation, please send us an email and we'll respond as quickly as we can. Thank you.